When I look ahead at Rio and beyond, it seems to me that our scarcest resource is time. And what we're actually looking at is a race between tipping points, between natural tipping points, environmental tipping points on the one hand, and political tipping points on the other. Can we close coal-fired power plants fast enough to save the Greenland ice sheet? Can we cut carbon emissions fast enough worldwide to save at least the larger glaciers in the Himalayas and on the Tibetan Plateau?
People haven't really got to the fact that we are literally facing a threat to our very survival. The greatest security threat we've ever faced, and we face it not just as a nation, but as a world community. And we forget that if you look at the history of life on Earth, the conditions required to support life on Earth have existed for only a very minute proportion of the Earth's history. And we are altering those conditions now.
If you look at some very clear assessments that we provided in the fourth assessment report of the IPCC, we said that if the world has to limit temperature increase to say 2 to 2.4 degrees Celsius, then we have to ensure that emissions of carbon dioxide peak no later than 2015. We ought to realize what the consequences of inaction would be. And we also need to realize the attractiveness of action. Because if you were to mitigate the emissions of greenhouse gases, there's a whole range of co-benefits that we shouldn't lose sight of. And those co-benefits include much higher energy security. They involve and would lead to lower levels of air pollution at the local level, and therefore much higher health benefits. There would be greater employment, most likely. There would also be much higher agricultural productivity, and therefore a larger measure of food security worldwide.
The sense of urgency is absolutely critical. I cannot stand to have just another meeting where people come, do their thing, and then leave as if, oh, back to the same old problem. There's got to be a call of we have an urgent crisis. And I keep saying, if a creature from outer space came to Earth and this huge monster emerged from that space capsule and began to run across the land, destroying an acre of forest and land every second, spewing out of its rear end toxic chemicals by the millions of pounds every year, and sucking up fresh water and consuming fish from the oceans at a horrifying rate, we'd all say, my God, we've got a major crisis. Well, we have a common problem now. Unfortunately, that common problem is us. But we have to marshal the same sense of commonality, of purpose, as a species now. This is the crisis of our time.
Are we at a critical point? We've been at a critical point for years now. We know that this critical point is not really a point, it's a sort of period of time that we have available to us to affect these changes. And we've been in that available period of time, in my opinion, for at least 20, and I would probably argue 40 years. So it's still just as critical. The criticality of it is no less now than it was in 1992.
You never feel like you're moving fast enough. And I think a lot of us who have been at this a long time have been frustrated over the years. But actually, I feel more confident today than I have at any point in the last 20 years. And it's really because of two things. One is there's an urgency within corporations to get it right. And there's also now, as I mentioned earlier, the technology to help us deliver on those goals.
It's high time that for international community to take advantage of the meeting in Rio to renew and reconfirm their commitment, and also come up with a practical measure to implement their commitments. Otherwise, we are wasting the time, and we don't have much time to waste.